So hi, Dimitri.
Hi, Adam.
How are you doing?
Not too bad.
What we already learned 1 year ago, it was exactly 1 year ago, that you started, to hack on a Russian first XT PC in Russia in 1985. So we don't have to recap that. But what's interesting, Helidon 2 is out. And what you promised me that the native compilation for MicroProfile is going to work. Is it true?
Yes, definitely.
Oh, that's the answer. Yeah, you are not a marketing man, should say, of course, and so what I also take a look at Helidon. What I really appreciate is a really nice idea, Helidon CLI.
Yeah.
And what it is, this is like a native file, one file, and what you can do, you can set up a project and run Helidon in dev mode. So what it basically does, it watches the changes and reloads everything. So how the Helidon CLI is written, is it in Java? And compiled to, or is it Go?
Yes, it's written in Java, and it actually uses GraalVM to make a native image for different platforms. Currently, they support only Mac OS and Linux, but Windows version is coming soon too. So yes, this is a Java application. It's very tied with Maven, So all it does, it checks the Maven archetypes and their generator, the code generator we had there, is actually based on Maven archetypes.
Okay. That's actually great news because it feels like Go. So I was already afraid to ask you, is it Java? Because I suspected you would answer no, we wrote it in Go, which would be a little bit sad. But this is just one binary. I just downloaded it with curl -o and did no chmod a+x and copied to a folder, and it worked out of the box. What I also appreciate, it comes with configuration, where I can store, my stuff. I don't have to repeat it over and over again. So it is somewhere in .helidon config or something. So I can add, my default packages, my default settings, and it seems like it picks it up and creates a new project, on the fly, which is really pragmatic. What I couldn't find is the source code on GitHub. You know where it is?
That's actually a good question. I'm not sure that they have a CLI code on GitHub, but maybe they do, right? They have a build tools repository. Let me open it here, and I'll try to find it. It's in Oracle, and if you type Helidon build tools.
Okay. Because it was not on the Helidon repository. I just find the README.
We have, yes, Helidon CLI is definitely there.
Okay.
We have 3 repositories, right? We have Helidon-build-tools,
okay.
and they have Helidon-site, right?
Okay.
So the CLI is in the build tools repository.
Okay, I will take a look on that because what I did is I created a primitive version of that years ago called watch and deploy, and it works similarly, but this was just pure Java. I was too lazy to cross-compile it to different languages, and I had some trouble with Maven Embedder because the Maven Embedder is based on some Xstream, I think, and this is not compatible with Java 11, which causes some warnings. So some to do on my side. Probably Christmas vacation is a good time to do that. So what's new in Helidon world? So 1 year. So what happened? So are you happy with the progress, or what's the state of Helidon?
I would say that I'm happy with the progress. Of course, we could do some more, but they're limited with resources. It was 1.something version. Now we have 2.x branch, right? And there were a lot of changes in 2.x. And the main thing, our main goal for 2.x was to bring GraalVM to the MicroProfile world. So we do have GraalVM support for Helidon MP. It means for users that you can build MicroProfile applications and compile them into the native image. And they do, that we use the proper full CDI version. So we don't have some kind of restricted CDI version not supporting something. We do have Weld, and which works with all CDI extensions. And if you can bring third-party CDI extension as well as embedded Helidon extensions, and if that extension supports GraalVM, it will smoothly work. That's the main thing. There are many other features. For instance, messaging and reactive operators. We support it in both MP and SE. In MP, there are MicroProfile specifications. And in SE, we just used our own API. Actually, that stuff was contributed by David Carlock. You know, David Carlock.
Mm-hmm.
It's a guy who created Reactor Free,
Mm-hmm.
right? We do have, basically, you know, off topic a little bit. Guy, Daniel, who was working on this messenger stuff, he's a fan of your podcast, you know.
Oh.
Yeah. So I would like to say hi to him. Hi, Daniel. I think he will be glad that he's mentioned in your podcast. Right?
Now, what we should do better, we should invite him to my podcast.
Yeah.
So, give me an email. I will invite him. This is really interesting because we can talk about reactive, right? Reactive messaging.
Yes, reactive messaging, reactive stream operators. He was the guy who was with that.
Yeah, very good. So I will invite him for sure. So this is my to-do. We will do it. Okay, so what it means is we have MicroProfile and, as you mentioned, complete CDI support. So
yes.
So what it implies is you don't like how Quarkus integrates with CDI, I guess, right?
It's just a different use case. Quarkus did a great job in what they've done, right?
Mm-hmm.
Quarkus is brilliant, but they went the way of restricting some functionality in favor of better GraalVM support, right?
Okay.
So they don't support the algorithms of CDI extensions. Let's put it this way. They make their own extension based on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the functionality is great, but what we do, we've chosen slightly different way, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to restrict our users, right? And we support the full CDI version. We support full weld with no restricted functionality, which is great if you want to, for instance, migrate your monolith application to microservices or just follow full standards and so on. And they actually have customers who chosen Helidon only because of that.
Okay, so what it means is, so my opinion from outside is like, Quarkus is pragmatic and they tend to choose, the 80% approach if this is simpler and, runs on GraalVM. And my impression from Helidon is you try to be, more standard compliant. So, you say we would like to support everything. So this is the main difference, right? I would say, so from philosophical perspective. So if I watch, the Quarkus guys and watch you, this is what is my impression at least. Can we put it this way?
Your impression is right.
Yeah.
We are trying to be very standard compliant.
Okay. Which is also my take. So as you probably know me, so I was always pro Java EE and Jakarta EE for years, and this is one of the reasons why I still enjoy Java, because I just focus on the APIs. Could talk on all conferences for 20 years without changing my slides. Always
That's the advantage.
Yeah, always the same story, because the runtimes changed, but the API remained the same. So without that, it wouldn't be possible. But I have to say, I like both approaches, and what I also like, you are not copying each other. This is what's fascinating the most. So I do a lot of Quarkus right now. The different is approach. They use a Maven plugin, Quarkus:dev, and you use the CLI tool, which is a complete different approach. But I also like it. It's very similar to my Word approach, and it's complete different take with which is really perfect, because something happens in Java ecosystem, I would say. So we have two great runtimes which emphasize the standards. So the Quarkus uses SmallRye with MicroProfile, and you are actually also using SmallRye behind the scenes?
We do use SmallRye for some MicroProfile functionality. I remember that we use it for OpenAPI, for instance.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But for many things, we have our own implementations based on Helidon SE.
And is your implementation more like Weld, where I could use it outside, or is it more or less, custom code for Helidon? You know what I mean? Is it more like, SmallRye, where I can pick SmallRye and run it on Glassfish, or is your implementation optimized for Helidon?
You can use SE for creating your applications too, right? So
no,
I might,
you created your own MicroProfile API implementation, so the SPIs for MicroProfile, right?
I'm afraid that it's Helidon only.
Okay, perfect. No, it is design choice, and because if it will be a generic implementation, then it couldn't be that optimized. This is my trade-off, architectural trade-off, just for me to understand that. What I also like, I just watch the guides and the documentation is that you are actually shipping with out-of-the-box WebSocket and Tyrus, which comes actually from Jakarta EE. Are there any others Jakarta EE APIs which you're supporting out of the box, or how Jakarta EE compliant are you actually? So which, what you are supporting beyond MicroProfile from Jakarta EE space, like bean validation, what we have, the concurrency and whatever?
From Jakarta, we support, first of all, everything what MicroProfile asks us to support, right? So JSON binding, JSON processing, JAX RS, CDI, right? In addition to that, we are supporting WebSocket. We are supporting JPA, right? JPA is very important to support. We don't support anything else. Bean validation, we're not declaring bean validation support, but I guess that it's easy to support bean validation by adding the dependency to Hibernate Validator, right? We don't support concurrency. We don't support security. We don't support servlet, and there are no plans to support servlet. Basically, I personally don't think that we will support more Jakarta specifications than we do support now. We do support what users want us to support.
But why I'm asking is because what I get a lot of requests is to help people migrate for marketing reasons or for real reasons from Jakarta or Java EE to Quarkus or Helidon. So Helidon is a little bit rare nowadays because I was in the more let's say whitefly environment, that is the natural choice Quarkus. But if someone would use, I would say, let's WebLogic or Glassfish, the old one, and then Helidon would be the natural choice because of commercial support. Speaking of which, can we actually buy support for Helidon right now?
It's in progress. We are working on establishing Helidon SKU, right? But if you own WebLogic, if you do, when Helidon support comes for free.
It means so WebLogic project can just pick Helidon and go for it.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the idea. So if you own WebLogic already license and you would like to migrate to microservices, right? Then we would like to make Helidon for our customers their natural choice, right? So they can use Helidon. First of all, we support all the standards. Not all the standards, but we support standards in full for easy migration. And the second thing that is support. So people can, just use support the same way as we use for WebLogic.
Are there going to be some, migration tools or whatever, or do you have them internally, or no? So is how to migrate?
No, we don't have any migration tools. Migration tools, it's quite complicated first, and it solves some very simple use cases usually, right? So it means that it works on the paper, but if you because projects are not created using one template, right? So one project in another project, they are different. Sometimes a little bit different, sometimes a lot different. And creating some kind of a generic migration tools is always a problem, right? So we keep it up to the users how to migrate. But what we are saying that if you are in standards, right, we do support standards. If you are in WebLogic, if you are in Helidon, Helidon is also a standard solution. Then, it makes migration much easier.
This is what I also saw. It is actually very easy to migrate from a reasonable Java EE Jakarta EE project to MicroProfile. It is, and many of my clients are actually surprised how fast it went. So it is not like a big deal. It's mostly just replacing some annotation, and usually it works.
Yep, exactly.
One question is, if I would, let's say, would like to cross-compile my Java MicroProfile application to GraalVM, how easy is it with Helidon? Do I have to to use specific? Do I have to provide some help for Helidon, or does it work out of the box in most cases?
It works out of the box. You just need to use native profile. If you created your application using Helidon CLI, right, we have a profile for that. You just do pnative, and it will compile it using GraalVM.
Okay. And it also, if I would use reflection, then it's a game over, right? You have to provide some additional help, or
this is your application, right?
Yeah.
So we provide GraalVM support in Helidon. So it means that if you use only Helidon, right, it will compile fine. But if you use some third-party extensions, or use some reflection in your code, right, or you use some proxying or runtime operations in your code, you need to be aware of it, right, yourself. Okay. So Helidon won't help here. You need to.
Then I have to go the standard GraalVM route. I would have to do whatever is necessary from GraalVM perspective, to declare the additional dependencies, and this is standard again. So there is no, additional syntactic sugar around GraalVM.
No,
okay,
we don't have.
So what it means is similar to Quarkus. So you have, predefined, let's call them extensions, which work out of the box with GraalVM. This is just, predefined libraries. And we have, and if I would add just regular dependency in Maven, then I will have to care by myself whether this is GraalVM compatible or not, right? But it will work out of the box.
Correct.
And what about, let's say, Oracle drivers? So if I add the Oracle JDBC driver, what's with that? Do you have specific, Oracle drivers which are GraalVM ready or something like that?
I think they do work with Oracle just fine, right? With the latest drivers. I'm not sure only one thing, is these drivers out or not, right?
Okay. Okay, but in one point in time, Oracle JDBC driver will support GraalVM native compilation.
Oh, definitely, yes.
Yeah,
there is a work going on in that area. So, yes, it will.
Another question which interests me, does plays Helidon any role in the Oracle Cloud?
What do you mean?
If you would use Oracle Cloud Functions or whatever, can I use somehow
you mean using supporting cloud services natively in Helidon, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah. So we are working on supporting some of OCI services in Helidon as well as not OCI services. So one of our goals is better cloud support. And in the next version, the major version of Helidon, we will bring some functionality related to the cloud, definitely. I can't really unveil what functionality is going to be there. Something they are working on now. Something is in very, very draft mode at the moment. But supporting better support for clouds is one of our goals.
On OCI, you mean, the container standard, right? API. This is what you mean by OCI, right?
OCI is Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. Basically,
okay.
It's Oracle Cloud. Yeah, you don't know about that, possibly. Okay. So, yeah. OCI is Oracle Cloud.
So what will happen is that the next version of Helidon will come with somehow better support for the Oracle Cloud infrastructure, right? And
yes.
And right now is of course cloud ready because you can already use Docker and Kubernetes and whatever you have. Because
this is a generic way to deploy applications to the cloud, right? But there are different services in the clouds, right? Messaging services, login services, functions and so on, right? In each cloud, these services are different, right?
Yeah.
So we are trying to come out currently with some kind of solution for not only for Oracle Cloud. I know that Helidon is used not only on Oracle Cloud, it's used on Amazon, it's used on Azure and so on. So we are trying to satisfy all users. So we are not limiting our cloud support to Oracle Cloud only.
What you could do...
And, what I would say, if someone wants to contribute some cloud support to Helidon, you are welcome. So if people from Google or from Microsoft or from Amazon are listening to your podcast, so I'm inviting them to contribute their cloud support to Helidon.
Yeah, exactly. So what we published recently as a podcast with Microsoft, they have a GMS 2.0 compatible implementation of Azure Service Bus, which comes with Maven dependency. This will be a perfect case, because you can send messages to the Azure Service Bus, for instance. And such integration, it could actually work on different levels. What I remember, what Microsoft did, they provided, for instance, for MicroProfile config, their own provider. And you could, get injected credentials for the Microsoft, the secrets for the Microsoft Cloud. Something like this would work. And what I could imagine, you can provide a set of Oracle-specific extensions, which makes all the services which are relevant to you injectable to Helidon, right? Something like this could work in future, and this would be the cloud profile. So in the case of Oracle, you got the Oracle stuff, and in the case of Microsoft, you got the Microsoft stuff, right?
Well, that's exactly what they're thinking of.
Yeah, perfect. And are you still involved with MicroProfile, JSON-B on JSON-P, or is no time for that?
Most of the time in Jakarta I spent in PMC, specification committee, and preparing for Jakarta EE 9 release, right?
Okay.
So if you want to talk about the new features of JSON binding and JSON processing, possibly it's a topic for a separate conversation, right? But yes, what I can say, there are some features planned for JSON binding related to configuration, related to better builder support, and so on and so on. We would like to make, for instance, a runtime configuration and compile time configuration with the same functionality, right? So you can do whatever you can do compile time, you will be able to do at runtime, for instance, right?
Okay.
And there are some other small enhancements planned, but this is everything is for Jakarta E10, and I will definitely need to find some time for that after Jakarta E9 release.
Okay. What's somehow Helidon related is what would be really nice is to have Java record on JSON-B support in Helidon, right? So I could just use Java record, the JDK. What is it? It's still in preview. But Java records which are automatically serialized to JSON-B, for instance, this would be something nice.
So
right?
I think the Java record is not in preview. I think it's already out. It's JDK 15 or JDK 14, right? Yeah, but I agree. It would be nice to have. Only one problem there is switching the minimum version of Java, right?
Mm-hmm.
So currently we support in Helidon Java 11 as a minimum version.
Mm-hmm.
Switching that to 14 or 15 to support records and so on, I'm not sure that it will be good for our customers. Because most of the customers are using Java 11 as a long-term release.
Mm-hmm.
And actually some of them in Java 8, and in Java 8, we can't use Helidon 2.0 because we have Java 11 as a minimum version of Java, right? So for Jakarta, I guess that's the same problem, right? So currently Jakarta is Java 8 based, right?
Yeah.
And we are planning to switch to Java 11 in their 9.1 or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Supporting records requires 14 or 15. I don't remember where.
I think it's still in preview. I will have to check it out whether it is. I think it will come out in 16 or 17. It was second preview or something. But no. Yes, it is. You know what? It came out. The text blocks are no more in preview. I think the Java records are still in preview. But regardless whether they are in preview or not, it would be nice to have them. And my opinion is, you're right. The long-term support is one thing, but I'm also working a lot actually with startups and smaller companies. And for them, they could actually start right now a small microservice with Java 15 plus. Who cares? And then just wait until the next LTS, This is a viable solution in microservice because you can have a smaller service and then, the major stuff can run still on JDK 11. So you can have different versions in microservice world, communicating with each other, right?
Yeah, the solution may be to come out with some kind of experimental features in different branches, right?
Yeah.
So which is what they are planning for Project Loom, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
We have some preliminary support for Project Loom.
Mm-hmm.
No one knows when Project Loom is going to be released, but you can download a JDK with Project Loom from Oracle site, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to be quite interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It actually demonstrates really nice results. We have support for that. I'm not sure that this branch is actually in Helidon now. I don't think so. It will be there soon. It's kind of experiments with Project Loom and Helidon in SE and MP. And the results are great.
Okay, this will be my next question because Helidon is somehow Oracle-sponsored project. Can we say that, or is it completely?
This is open source project, but yes, all major developers are Oracle developers.
Yeah. So therefore, actually, and Oracle, of course, is the steward of Java still. I mean, the Mark Reinhold and Brian Getz are still working, at Oracle. Sun gurus, I would say, now are working still at Oracle. So what I would expect that Helidon has some advantage because you can work, if you like, very close with the other engineers. Are there some synergies or are just completely isolated? And between the JVM team and Helidon team, or is it like two different departments and you see each other at Java 1 once a year?
Now we can see each other only on computer screens, right?
Yeah.
I would say that we do have relationship in the Java team, right?
Okay.
We communicate with Java folks.
Mm-hmm.
And especially in the area of Project Loom support, we had a couple of conversations, even more, and we did have even some presentations and POCs, right? So we are not isolated, right? Mm-hmm. So it's in Oracle. It's possible to communicate between teams, and this is what we do.
Yeah, this is very good because at the Sun Microsystems time, I always wondered myself why they are not talking to each other. It's like that complete different departments. One did something and the other did complete different. And I from outside I watched them. This is really a pity because if they would work together, I don't know what you were at Sun. No, back then?
No.
There was like, SunGrid, and this SunGrid was like kind of a cloud. And at the same time, already they had, the Java EE servers. But in order to deploy to the SunGrid, you have to use a completely strange format and zip the entire thing. And it's like, okay, why are you doing this and not using just a war or ear or whatever, right? And this was what I never understood. But large company is a large company. But I'm glad it works a little bit better. So what I understood the last time, the Helidon has a complete reactive core, right? So a very reactive core is probably one of the reasons why you don't like servlets, right? I guess because they are not compatible with your reactive core, I would say, right?
That's the first reason. Another reason that we don't think that servlet is really a microservices thing, right? So you mainly use RESTful services, not HTTP services, for your microservices services. Another reason why we don't want to support servlet.
What you will lose with servlets, what I still think what a valid use case can be is, I also spend time in web front ends. And in web, it is very natural to have, Node.js, or not very natural. It is fashionable, not natural, to have on the back end Node.js and in the front end something else, let's say React or whatever. And they are pre-rendering stuff on the back end. And they use, a template-like language, or they use hybrid frameworks which are able to pre-render on the server side. And we have such frameworks. We have MVC, we have JSPs, we have servlets, and kind of JSF a little bit. So, for such use cases, you could use Helidon, Quarkus, or whatever comes, to pre-render HTML on the server side and send, the pre-rendered HTML to the browser and then, proceed with JavaScript. Not like everything pre-rendered on the server. My example is if you have, let's say, a zip codes for USA, right? So so what you could do on the server is just pre-render the web components to fetch from the database all the zip codes, and ship the hard-coded zip code options to the browser. Otherwise, I will have to go from the browser to the server and fetch the zip codes via additional fetch, which is slower. So therefore, I think in longer term, if we do more marketing in this direction, it could take off, because in Java we had the technology for years, but we use it in a completely different way. We try to do all or nothing. We try to generate everything on the server, which was problematic, right?
Yeah. On the other hand, that pre-rendering stuff, if it's very simple, like you pre-render HTTP page, HTML page, sorry, you should support something like expression language, standard title library, or even more sophisticated components like JSF, right? I'm not sure that we really want it, and supported it in a limited amount. It doesn't make sense because users would like to have more, right? On the other hand, your use case with zip codes, yes, it's one request to the server, really, really simple request which returns one zip code, and after that you cache it in your browser in the session store, right? And you don't do any more requests to the server. This solution would perfectly work, right? So only because of that use cases bringing this huge amount of code to the framework, it doesn't sound really reasonable, is it?
Servlet is not that much, right? The servlet would be just,
servlet, but I'm talking about JSF, for instance.
No,
right?
JSF, you're right. JSF, I wouldn't use JSF for that. MVC, servlet, JSPs, this is what I'm thinking about. JSF not. I just, mentioned JSF. It could that JSF it's actually not suitable to do that, JSF, because there are no loops and nothing, right? So I would say servlet or JSPs would work well. MVC, the Jakarta MVC would work well for that. And servlets is just enabling technology. JSF not. JSF is not suitable for that. So agreed. What I do right now is an interesting solution just for you. But I use GraalVM. And GraalVM comes with JavaScript support, really good JavaScript support. So what I did is I created the JS context and loaded a mustache on handlebars, a native JavaScript solution to render the output, which worked. But it's a little bit slow because of JavaScript, because I have to reopen the context over and over again because of request scoped. And that's where I got the idea. I know with Java would work easier. And I'm just giving you a use case, which could be a viable one, why servlets could make sense. Or if not servlet, I think Jersey has also capability of MVC on top of Jersey. At least, back then, there was a Jersey investigation that you could use Jersey to render front ends. You remember that? They had on Jersey, there was a Java one that on Jersey, a extension of Jersey where you can then render, like just use JAX-RS to render, HTML.
Okay, I don't remember that.
Okay, so we will have to. I would try to find that and send to you. But regardless, just giving you some new ideas where servlets or JSPs or Jakarta MVC or similar technology could make sense. And what I also do with Quarkus right now, they have their own rendering stuff and Qt, and I use that for static page generation. So I create, the native image, and it generates, for instance, a static page, which works also great. But this is, as you said, if lots of your clients or customers asking you for that, then you're implementing this. I hope after the podcast, you get lots of requests, to support.
To implement servlet. Yeah,
maybe.
You need to talk with Thomas Langer, right? So,
about servlets, yeah. Why Thomas hates servlets? This will be the title of the podcast.
Why Thomas hates servlets?
Yeah, that's
what I agree with that servlets will possibly make even more sense for Project Loom, right? Their slow blocking framework suddenly will become very, very fast, right?
Yeah. So. But why are you so aware of the performance? I have to admit, I never had that problem with servlets in production. I mean, it is from the theoretical perspective. They are blocking, of course, so they can kill your runtime. But they were never a problem, I mean, even if the thread blocks and consumes some memory, we are not implementing API gateway with servlets. It's more like, a very specific use case for a microservice. And if we get several requests per second, it's not a problem. You get a problem if you get, 100,000 requests per second, which not every project has.
But, in the cloud era, I would say, performance and memory consumptions means direct money, right?
Yeah.
So customers are choosing solutions which are low memory because they are paid for memory, and very performant because if you have a slower solution, you will need to have more nodes, right? And more nodes means more money. So fastest and lowest memory consumption solutions winning, right?
Okay.
Which is what we are trying to do.
So what do you mean? So your focus is performance and scalability is number one. Whatever
It's always was, right?
Okay.
It's always was. We actually have in Oracle a separate team which is testing different frameworks for performance and for blocking racing conditions and this kind of stuff. And I think they are doing the perfect job. They already had a lot of advices for us, which with their help, we were able to make Helidon really fast in start type and in request processing and so on.
Okay. So what would be actually interesting, you could do this, you could actually compare Helidon to Glassfish, because Glassfish is an open source, the true Glassfish from the open source edition. Write some code with, let's say, servlets, just do something reasonable and compare it to Helidon, because then people will really see, the memory consumption from Glassfish versus memory consumption of Helidon and the scalability of Glassfish versus Helidon, and hence Glassfish is, an open source project. No one could object that, right? It would be a fair comparison somehow, or at least
it's actually a good idea to write a blog article about that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, maybe to include other microservices framework as a comparison, it would be really good. Yeah, I agree. So maybe we should do it.
Yeah. And regarding Project Loom, what Project Loom is, to my understanding, is it's just like green threads back then, right? So you can have lots of threads. And these threads don't consume a lot of or a little resources comparing to real threads.
Lightweight threads, yes.
Exactly. And this was exactly what it started with Java. It was called green threads, and they switched to native threads because of CPU support, and now this is the direction back to lightweight threads. Yeah, that's actually great. So what it means is that the Helidon is doing well. This is an alternative to Quarkus. And it supports MicroProfile 3.3, I think, right?
Yes. Last week we released version 2.1, which supports MicroProfile 3.3, which is the latest now at the moment.
And are you always supporting the latest? So is it one of the priorities to catch up with the MicroProfile, or?
Yes, of course. We are MicroProfile framework, right? Okay. So we are trying to catch up and even be the first to support, right?
Very good. And the Java SE, how many customers are using Java SE and how many are using MicroProfile? If you can reveal that,
No, that's a good question. I'm not a Helidon PM, right?
Wow.
I don't know how many customers are using what version of Helidon. It's actually quite difficult to detect, right?
Yeah.
What I can say that since 2.0 was released, folks have they spend a lot of time in customer support.
Mhm.
So suddenly, people started to ask a lot of questions about Helidon, and the amount of these requests is increased significantly, right? So based on that, I can assume that a lot of people started to use Helidon or started to play with Helidon, which is absolutely brilliant, right? If you ask my personal numbers, which I have in my head, right? I think more people are using MicroProfile than Helidon SE. Because it's just more familiar development experience for them, right?
Yeah.
It's based on enterprise Java. It's very similar, or the same, I can say, what Spring has, right? Annotations, dependency injections, everything is quite similar. So more people are using Helidon MicroProfile. But there are some people who definitely use Helidon SE because we have questions about it, right?
Okay.
Especially our new DB client, when we introduced that, we suddenly had a lot of questions, how it works and what is that and how to do this using DB client and so on. So it doesn't mean actually that people use it in production, but at least people are interested in what is that, where people evaluating that, people providing us feedback, which is what we really need very much. We need your feedback. I mean, not your feedback, but I'm asking all listeners. So if you have some feedback about Helidon, it's positive or negative. Possibly negative is better because it makes it forces us to make the Helidon better, right? So please provide your feedback on Twitter, our issues tracker, wherever, in our Slack channel. We are usually very responsive in answering questions. And
I just took a look at the Java SE, and it looks interesting and looks powerful. What I could imagine, if you have special cases, then go with Java SE, because I assume you can use all the Helidon functionality. Hence, MicroProfile is a abstraction already among different runtimes, and it's impossible to reveal all the features of Helidon via MicroProfile. I mean, this never works, right? If you have an API like Jakarta EE, let's say, and then Pyara, WebLogic, WebSphere were always more powerful than Jakarta EE was because of the APIs, the same as MicroProfile. True, I would say if I would build, an API gateway or something like this, I would probably, as a product, use Java SE and have the full power. And if I'm in project, I would use MicroProfile, and I prefer MicroProfile, of course, because this is immediately familiar for me, and I can start in seconds, right? So for me, I just took a brief look at Java SE, but I spent some time with MicroProfile, I would say a few days, just working with Helidon, because what I wanted to do is, with the GraalVM, the JavaScript, and it worked well out of the box. So MicroProfile felt really natural to me from the beginning.
Yeah, it's a question of different development experience, right? So if you would like to use pure Java and have full control on what your application is doing,
exactly,
right, then Helidon SE is your choice, because you control it fully, right? There are no magic. We call it actually officially no magic, because no injections, no annotations.
No magic is my term, I will sue you. So I will sue Oracle right after the podcast. No magic is my thing.
No, possibly you will give us a right to use your expressions.
Yeah, I will have to. After 10 years, after 10 years lawsuit, so then we will retire and we'll still answer. Okay, yeah. Now you can use it because you're Oracle.
Thank you very much. So basically, with Helidon SE, you have full control, right? You can do everything really, but it's a trade-off. There are always trade-offs, right? So you have full control, but you need to write a little bit more code, right? Because with MicroProfile does a lot of things for you.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes you want it. In the most cases, you want it, and it does it right. But in some cases, this is not what you want, right?
Yeah.
And in this case, possibly Helidon SE is your choice, that you can do whatever you want and as you want, right?
Yeah.
But as I said, the drawback is a little bit more code, and the reactive code is more complicated to develop than just normal Java SE-like code, Java EE-like code.
But what's really different between Helidon and Quarkus is that Helidon from beginning was, a library, I would say, because you had always the main method under your control. So you can start the main method, do whatever you like, and then launch Helidon. And with Quarkus, it wasn't possible at the beginning, and I was even wanted to contribute some code to make it work, but it didn't. Now it works. But Helidon did it from beginning, which is really interesting. Your vision or goals are complete opposite, and it still works. This is what fascinates me with both frameworks. The Quarkus was like completely integrated but closed, a little bit closed solution first because it started, and here it is. And you could actually integrate. I mean, it would be completely strange, but you could integrate Helidon inside a JavaFX application just for fun. I mean, it will work. You can. I mean, yeah, and why not, right? So that's the main difference. What I noticed is that Oracle works together with Micronaut guys, right? So, will be any impact on Helidon?
Yeah, I think so. Graham works for Oracle now.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Is that part of your team or different team?
No. No, we are in different departments.
Mm-hmm.
So Graham works in GraalVM team.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And we are in cloud native Java team.
Okay.
Right? So Graham is great.
Mm-hmm.
And
Graham is great. Graham is great.
Graham was great.
Graham is great. Uh-huh.
He's working on Micronaut and with combination with GraalVM. Right.
Okay.
And what we are trying to do, we are trying to somehow integrate some Micronaut functionality to Helidon, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
And quite soon, I can't say really when, but soon, we will come out with supporting Micronaut extensions in Helidon, right?
Mm-hmm.
At least some of them. So in Helidon MP, you can add a couple of dependencies and you will be able, for instance, to use Micronaut data in your Helidon MP application, right?
Okay.
Or bin validation from Micronaut in Helidon MP application, which would be really great. So it increases the Helidon overall functionality, and Micronaut users will be able to try at least Helidon because Micronaut doesn't support MicroProfile, right?
Exactly.
And if users want to use MicroProfile and they still miss some of them Micronaut functionality like Micronaut data, this could be a nice solution for them, right?
This is actually great news. Great news, because what I was afraid of, what I thought is that, Helidon will get the Micronaut APIs. Then I will be completely no more interested in Helidon because, the interesting part is the MicroProfile. This is the familiarity. And people ask me about my opinion about Micronaut. Like, it's nice, but it's a completely different world. I mean, we are from Jakarta EE MicroProfile, so why to learn something different? But in your particular case, it makes perfect sense because I can keep using MicroProfile and use a Micronaut extension with some Micronaut add-ons, which is completely viable.
Yeah, so Helidon is still there. As we talked before, we position Helidon as a standard-friendly solution, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Helidon is about standards, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Micronaut is all about GraalVM, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bit different areas, right? So two frameworks are still there, and we are trying to get the best. Helidon is trying to get some ideas from Micronaut, and I guess the Micronaut wants to get some ideas from Helidon too,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but we are not talking about turning Helidon into Micronaut or turning Micronaut into Helidon. No. This is definitely what we are not planning to do.
Yeah, this is actually great news. And another question is, what interests me is, are there any story with Helidon in serverless, Helidon as a function or something like that? Are you toying with that, or they're just using Helidon in native mode to run on Knative or something like this? I think you have, because what I tried, FN project FN from Oracle is a little bit on hold. It seems like from the commits, but something like Helidon instead of the FN function would make perfect sense for me.
Yes, we work in this area, right? Again, we were talking about that cloud support is one of our priorities, right? Mm-hmm. And supporting cloud functions is included in that cloud support too, right? Mm-hmm. And functions is not limited to FN project, right? There are also Amazon Lambdas, there are Google functions, there are Azure functions, and so on, right? So this work is in progress. We want to make it the Helidon way, right?
Yeah.
So we want to make it the way that users, when they do programming, they feel that it's nicely integrated into the Helidon APIs, in the Helidon development experience. It takes a little bit of time, right?
Of course.
But it will be there eventually, definitely.
So you're also looking at cloud events and stuff like that as well, I guess, right? So
yes.
Yeah, very good.
Yes. Yes.
So you mentioned Spring. So is there any comparison, Spring Boot memory versus Helidon memory?
Yes, we did some comparison, but I don't think that we compared the recent versions, right?
Okay.
Of Helidon and recent versions of Spring Boot, right? Helidon was the absolute winner, by the way, in that comparison.
Okay.
So the Helidon footprint is much smaller and memory consumption is much smaller.
Okay.
Right. I don't have numbers here.
But you can send me, if you can send me a link, I will put it to show notes.
Because, I'll try to find out.
Because what I noticed, this is really, really funny. As you know me, I'm working with Jakarta Java EE for years, and I always heard Java is big and whatever, which was never true, but I heard it over and over again. And some folks moved to Spring Boot, and what I see right now is they are moving back. Actually, I got asked, last year I got 2 to 3 projects to help them to migration away from Spring Boot, and now it even increases a bit because of memory consumption and startup time. And I always asked him, how is it possible? You claimed you are a lightweight framework, and now it seems like it's big. But if you say, Helidon is smaller than Spring Boot, it seems to be true.
Spring is great, right? Spring is basically currently de facto standard, right? So you're asking people what they use, and 90% or 80% saying they use Spring, right? Okay. Spring Boot. Right? So people trying to find something else to try to find alternative solution, right? And Helidon and the Quarkus and Micronaut, there are alternative solutions to Spring Boot, right? With all the greatness, Spring Boot has a lot of third-party dependencies, right? So when you create a Spring Boot project, it downloads half of the internet of dependencies, which is not really good. Right?
Yeah.
And for startups, possibly it doesn't make sense, but for corporate projects where you actually need to check all third parties and approve the usage of third parties because of licenses, because of security and so on, it may become a huge problem, right?
It is, actually.
Yeah. And this is, I see, one of the reasons why people are trying to avoid Spring Boot because of a lot of third party dependencies.
Because you are using my arguments right now, which are really surprised me, right? Because this is exactly what I saw, and what I never actually thought about that. What seems like I have to admit, I never started a Spring Boot project. So I helped, to fixing some not Spring Boot project as Java problems which run on Spring Boot, but I never started, or I just, my world is completely Jakarta EE MicroProfile. This is all my project and whatever I do. But what I did accidentally, so I was asked to perform a code review on a Spring Boot project, and they thought this is Java EE project, so they asked me, and the project looked actually really nice. It was not exaggerated, or there was nothing. And so I said, okay, my feedback is the source code looks great, and they say, okay, we will have to move away from it. It's like, why that? I mean, this looks nice. And what turned out is that there is no API. So what the developer used is the Spring Boot dependencies directly. And this was an older Spring Boot version. And there was some security issue. They were forced to move up. But the problem was, I think it was 1.4. And the official path to 2.0 or something was migrate twice. So they say, we will actually have to migrate from 1.4 to 1.5, I believe, and from 1.5 to 2.0. And this is too much. And I thought, this is interesting because I never thought about that, because we never had to do this on application servers because we had the API, And if you're using just the Jakarta EE or MicroProfile APIs, the vendors can do whatever they like. I never cared. It actually, we never had such an issue, I have to admit. Sometimes, the servers behave differently. There were bugs, obviously, but not like we have to migrate anything because we get a new version of Payara, Whitefly, or Open Liberty. It's a completely different world, I would say. Right. So therefore, why I like also the MicroProfile world of Helidon, because I suspect if I would use the Java SE version of Helidon, it's probably less stable than the MicroProfile one, right?
Less stable.
Less stable, because the Java SE version, I will work with Helidon versions, Helidon APIs directly, and the MicroProfile version is more stable than the Java SE stable, because if you upgrade Helidon, you are still tied to MicroProfile, right? Why my code won't change in this particular case, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. That's actually a good question. I don't think that Helidon SE APIs are less stable, but in MicroProfile, MicroProfile is evolving really fast too, right? So when you want to change from one version of MicroProfile to another version of MicroProfile, you will possibly need to change your application too, right?
Yeah.
And this is actually a consequence of fast cadence.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So the APIs are not really stable. No, let's put it this way. This is this assumption was incorrect. APIs are becoming stable, right? So when you develop some APIs, you evolve it, right? And eventually it becomes stable. When it's stable, it's not changing much, right? But if it changes, you need to change your application. So basically, what I'm trying to say that with MicroProfile, you will possibly need to change your application too, right? If you would like to move from one version of MicroProfile to another. This is not Java EE there, Java EE 7 and Java EE 8 for how many years? Like 5 years difference, right? So it's something different. But in Helidon SE, what we are trying to do, we are supporting semantic versioning, and we are trying to bring backwards incompatible changes only in the major release, right? So we release 2.0, it's not backwards compatible with 1.0. Maybe you won't feel it because that backwards compatibility will be in some different areas that we used, but it's not, right? So next backwards incompatible change we will bring in Helidon 3, which will be released sometimes next year, which I think is totally fair, right? So
back to MicroProfile, what I'm saying, Java SE from my eyes, it has to be more unstable unless you're creating your own API, because you are exposing directly the Helidon APIs. And with MicroProfile, the MicroProfile stability is dictated by the MicroProfile versions. And if a MicroProfile, breaks the compatibility, it breaks for all runtimes, not just for you. So I mean, I get the same problem in all runtimes. And what you said, the cadence is one thing. Why MicroProfile will be never stable is actually by if you consider MicroProfile, let's say open metrics or MicroProfile metrics, they are dependent on the Cloud Native Foundation. So if Cloud Native Foundation decides, or not the Cloud Native Foundation, the open metrics, open census, I think, and open telemetry, if they decide to change the spec, MicroProfile will have to adapt. So, and then breaking changes will just happen, but not because we are changing the API. The cloud or the cloud vendors will change the API, which was never an issue in Java EE because we are not dependent, on Cloud Native Foundation or whatever. So this was more like, closed Java world, and now we are in huge ecosystem. Or let's say as Kubernetes changes the health checks, then we will also have to adapt in MicroProfile health because, it has changed. This is a fact. And so therefore, I think that, and by the way, MicroProfile was remarkable stable. So there was, the health was a little bit changed, the annotations. But what's really great, or we are in a lucky situation, where the breaking changes in MicroProfile are not that significant, because if you think about that, they are just added values, right? If you have health checks, you probably have at most 10 health checks in the entire application. So if health checks will break, I will have, to search for health and fix the annotation in 10 places. So metrics a little bit more severe, but not a big deal, because the annotations are what you usually will have is some counters and gauges. And so what I wanted to say is, it's not like CDI. If CDI will change, it will break everything. But MicroProfile is like added value, and most of the APIs has huge added value with very narrow surface, like the best, for instance, open tracing. At the end of the fact, we get one annotation called traced, and we get a huge added value. So what can break with annotation? Behind the scenes, of course, the functionality can change, but there is not a lot to do for a developer. If you go through all the open API, you can use open API without adding any annotation to your code. It will just happen automatically. So I think it is not a huge issue in MicroProfile. And it's a lot larger issue in JPA, for instance, right? So which is outside of MicroProfile, or CDI would be fatal. Even JAX-RS, if you change, lots of this semantic meaning of the annotations, we will be in bigger trouble. So I think MicroProfile is not that critical.
So it depends on how you do it, right? As well, right? So you can bring some backwards incompatible changes, but removing immediately half of your functionality, right? Then in this case, definitely it will break everything. But if you try to do it a smart way, okay, so we decided that this is a dead end, right? We switch to slightly another direction. We will deprecate these kind of things, right? And we'll keep it there for X number of releases, or maybe forever, but it will be deprecated, right? So this is a kind of a nice way of keeping backwards compatibility or backwards incompatibility, right? And on the other hand, there is also a difference between application server deployment and all-in-one application, right? Because if you have an application server, right, as you said, you just implementing APIs, right, and it runs on something, application server, right? And application server may support some kind of a hot patching, right? So there is a security hole. Okay, we can deploy a new version of some implementation, and this is OSGI based. So you just put your jar into the class path, and it will be taken by your application server without restarting, right, and so on, right? So So that's actually a huge advantage because if you have all-in-one application, right, executable jar, this is what's used for microservices now, Quarkus, Helidon, Spring Boot, and so on. If there is a security hole, right, you basically need to redeploy all of your nodes, right?
Yeah.
So in use. Of course, you can use some kind of a hot redeployment in your cloud environment where you, change your nodes one by one and so on. But it's kind of a different technology which serves the same purpose, right?
Yeah, exactly. So what I'm waiting now,
a little bit more complicated.
What I'm waiting right now is, hence, Helidon is tiny, Quarkus is tiny. I think in 2 years we should see, the movement back to shared deployments, right? So I wouldn't be surprised. We will call complete different. Let's say I don't know how to call it that, but I think monolith should come back, actually, if you think reasonable about that, because, not all projects have the problem with the memory. And for me, using an Helidon and put, some microservices on top of Quarkus, Helidon, Payara, Whitefly, OpenLiberty, whatever, would make perfect sense for some applications. And I wouldn't be surprised to see the trend back because, having, 500 microservices communicating over the wire with each other is not always the perfect solution, right?
No, and I was always saying that monolith is actually not bad, right?
No.
So microservices is not the only solution. In the
absolutely.
many cases, monolith still makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So I had an article recently explaining why you should switch to microservices and when you should switch to microservices. And their idea is it depends, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you really need to think before switching. Do you really need it?
Yeah, my advice is always start with a monolith, and if you're reasonable, write simple code, and then if you get some new use cases, it becomes really obvious if you need a microservice. I mean, if you're really thinking about this, sometimes the best solution is to introduce a microservice, but you will know it, right? You say, okay, now I'm depending on something third party, which has different release cycle to my application. That makes perfect sense to introduce a microservice. Or you have different requirements regarding monitoring or whatever, or scalability, then it makes sense. But not start with microservices, because at the beginning, it's really hard to identify the microservices. By the way, it will be the same story if you will start with OSGI bundles. It will be the same. At the beginning, how many bundles do we need? No one knows. So let's wait a little bit until we learn, and then introduce the modules, because otherwise it will never work. So the last uncritical question is Jakarta EE or MicroProfile, right? Should be merged together or keep separate? What's your opinion?
Good question.
Yeah.
So many people, many opinions.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I think that it would be nice to have only one project for that. But on the other hand, what I'm interested in the progress, right? I'm interested in that it actually works, right? And if people think that it's better to have it separate, I'm okay with that. We just need to participate and we just need to work on both, right?
Right.
The interesting case is that there are more or less the same people working on MicroProfile and Jakarta EE.
Exactly.
Right? But with separation, at least this is how I understand it, it's more logical separation and more marketing separation, right? Jakarta EE is still associated with Java EE, right? And from some users' perspective, Java EE is associated with huge monoliths, slow memory consumption, and so on, right? And MicroProfile is something new, something for microservices, and it doesn't have in the user's mind the association with slowness, huge memory consumption, and this kind of stuff, right? So this is, I guess, one of the reasons why these two initiatives are separated, right? On the other hand, we all know that this is not really true, that application service, Java EE and Jakarta EE, eat too much memory.
No.
And huge footprint and so on. This is basically not true, right?
Yeah.
So we need to evolve both. Evolve MicroProfile and evolve Jakarta and combine them. So I don't see any problems why we shouldn't use MicroProfile APIs in Jakarta application servers. This is actually what most of the application server vendors are doing now, right? OpenLiberty supports both Jakarta and MicroProfile. Tommy does the same, Payara does the same, and so on, right?
Actually, all.
And MicroProfile, they are also using Jakarta EE APIs,
exactly.
right? So JAX RS is there, CDI is there, JSON binding, JSON processing is there. So this is where we actually need to combine our efforts, and we need each other, right?
Yeah.
And just push it forward.
Exactly, because right now, if you are in projects, it is almost impossible to use Jakarta EE without MicroProfile or MicroProfile without Jakarta EE. The whole discussion from pragmatic perspective, from user perspective like me, doesn't make any sense. For implementers or vendors perspective like yours, is a huge difference. But I saw some survey, which is the most popular framework, like Jakarta EE, MicroProfile, this was in Germany, Quarkus, and I think was like Quarkus was first, then MicroProfile, and then Jakarta EE. It's like, what does it mean? I mean, I never used Quarkus without Jakarta EE or MicroProfile, right? So what they did...
It's all the same, is it? Right?
Yeah, it's all the same. So and if we will combine, this Quarkus, MicroProfile, and Jakarta EE was like, then it will win over everything, right? So this is like, this is like interesting what the people are thinking. You like, Helidon more, Jakarta EE or MicroProfile. You cannot just start MicroProfile without Helidon, right? You cannot just use MicroProfile out... I will ask you now, what is more popular, JDBC driver or Oracle driver? I mean, you cannot just use JDBC without Oracle, right? This is a very strange discussion, and yeah. Thank you. So where people can find you? On Twitter, GitHub, and Helidon Slacks.
I hope you put my contacts in your release notes.
Sure.
Right? Basically, I'm everywhere. I'm on Twitter, M0MUS, right? This is my nick. I am on Helidon Slack channel. I'm afraid that you will need to get a link from the helidon.io website. It's down below the community section. There they have all the contacts. And LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn. You search for my name, Dmitry Kornilov, and you'll be able to find me.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. It was fun.
Yeah, thanks, Adam.
So we should in 1 year schedule another session about Helidon 3.0.
Yeah,
okay.
definitely.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye.